Hello and welcome everyone. BBC Caribbean Body Talk presents Hear and Do the Right Thing. And I'm your host, Brother Sam. Remember that our network's mission is to educate and inform the public and communities where we live and do business. We highlight positive attributes of the Caribbean American people, whether it comes from around the corner or around the world. You know, I was working on doing a program on what it takes to be a good leader. And I realized that it was more important to speak about character before I can discuss anything about leadership. It's important to understand that the principles of character development are central and vital to any discussion about what it takes to be a good leader. Character is the foundation of the personality of any individual, and it is vital to your future and your destiny. So, we will talk about character. First, it is critical to emphasize what character is not to help our understanding of this topic. I want to expose and debunk some ideas about what character is not. There are a few common misconceptions about character that I want to address. Look at this chart. I call it character foundations. Now, character is not determined by your talent, nor by social position. It's not determined by charisma or eloquence in speech. Education or physical strength does not determine your character. Neither does popularity nor your family background. Power and political connections do not determine your character. Let's look at these. Item number 1, talent. The first point I want to make sure you understand is that your talent and your ability do not determine your character. Your talent is no guarantee that you will be a reliable person or an honest person. Talent is overrated when it comes to character. We can make a list of talented actors, athletes, business and political personalities who have fallen from grace because of character flaws. Do you remember Mr. Bernie Madoff, a very talented financial whiz who committed crime and was jailed for robbing his clients? He was a talented financial expert and a convicted thief. Yet many people connect talent with character. You often hear people say that they want to be like some talented TV personality or some business leader or athlete. You do not know the person so don't try to be them because you do not know their character. Too many people believe that they can know someone they watch regularly on television. There is nothing wrong with admiring an individual's talent or ability, but being a fan sometimes goes beyond admiration, even to worshiping a movie star or a sports figure. There are people who practically worship movie stars. We are not to worship people because they can sing, they can act, play sports, or do great business. That is where the danger lies, especially when the star falls from grace. Then the fan is disillusioned. Another problem is that the person with talent and ability can be in danger of becoming arrogant and haughty without a character of humility. There's a Bible verse in Luke 12 which says, "To whom much is given, much is required." In other words, the more natural and material things you have, the greater is your responsibility to be humble and resourceful. Humble yourself before the mighty hand of God, and He will promote you in due time. The bottom line, your character is not determined by your talent or your ability. Item number 2, social position. At first, you may wonder why I would include social position in a discussion about character. It should be obvious that your social position in society does not determine your character. However, I want you to think about this. Why does our society will be more likely to condemn the crime committed by a person of quote unquote low social position than the same crime committed by a person of higher social position? Professor Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, documents how unequal jail time is meted out to people of low social position and the poor members of our society. Statistics show that people of high social status are treated better, partially because there is an informed assumption that they are better than others, that they are more cultured than others, and that they are more likely to make a positive contribution to the advancement of our society. This is false. Let me make it crystal clear. The truth is that your social position has nothing to do with your character. Nothing. It is time that the poor and so-called people of quote-unquote low social position totally reject that belief system. The method by which we select political leaders use this falsehood to deceive many people. Stop accepting even the thought that people of high social status are better than others. They are not. We are all equal, endowed with different talents and abilities that we all have responsibility to develop. It is a very harmful assumption that your social position determines your character. Item number 3. This is a big one. Charisma. Charisma can be very deceptive when it comes to evaluating the character of a person. You see, charisma is that attractiveness, that charm that can be very influential on others. It can be emotional response or admiration of a person, even a seducing spirit. Women may swoon over people with charisma. Sometimes men may admire or even get jealous of a charismatic person. In fact, charisma usually hides personality flaws, which can be detrimental to both the charismatic person and those they influence. Many times, the charisma wears off as you get to know the charismatic person. You then see the real character and not just the influence. So beware of charisma in the building of character, because ultimately it can cover an empty shell. Character is greater than charisma. The lack of good character is deadly in a charismatic leader. Yet people tend to follow charismatic leaders. We see it all the time, especially when the false ones are exposed. You should not just depend on charisma. A person of character should have substance to their personality and not depend on charisma alone. In fact, charisma without humility can be a seducing spirit whose aim is to deceive. Let me repeat that. Charisma without humility can be a seducing spirit aimed to deceive. So beware of charisma masquerading as character. Item number 4, eloquence in speech. Another character trait that can be dangerous to character development is eloquence of speech. Generally, people are enamored, impressed, emotionally moved and seduced by someone who's an eloquent speaker. They also tend to give eloquent speakers a pass by readily excusing their character flaws. Why? Because there's a tendency to believe that you are a good person because your speaking ability can move people emotionally. In politics, in social circles, such eloquent persons are promoted, admired, and recruited into leadership circles prematurely. In religious circles, we hear terms like the person is anointed, a man of God, spiritual, attributed to such eloquent speakers. This is utter nonsense and foolishness. Let me say that so that religious people can hear me. Eloquence in speech is not a sign of being anointed. You are not anointed because you can preach eloquently and move people emotionally. Your ability with words does not determine your character. Just like charisma, the influence of eloquence can breed pride and arrogance in a person. This is a dangerous flaw, so be conscious that there is a vast difference between the talent of eloquence and the requirement of a good character. I really have to emphasize this point. Eloquence of speech does not determine your character. There is a lot more to say about character. So please stand by, and we will be right back after this break. Welcome back. Item number 5, education. Although a good education is helpful to character development, it does not determine a good character. This is a tricky one because it would seem natural and intuitive that an educated person should have a good character. Why? Because they have an easier access to information and training about character development. However, there is a definite difference between having knowledge and the application of that knowledge to your life. Actually, it is not a matter of your education, but your values. We can identify many educated leaders in history whose character were questionable. For example, former President Nixon has a law degree from Duke University and wrote many definitive books on history and politics. Yet he was willing to break the law to stay in power. So he was forced to resign the President of the United States in disgrace. His values, not his education, was the central factor in his demise. There are many educated leaders around the world who are poor examples of good character. Your education should be a tool to help you develop a character of reliability and high moral and ethical standards that others can admire and emulate. It is not a secret that the public is always most negatively affected by some of the wayward leaders who are educated. Item number 6, physical strength and popularity. It should be obvious that neither physical strength nor popularity should determine your character. However, these abilities tend to confuse some immature people, especially teenagers. Generally, people tend to look up to those individuals with physical strength or popularity. Some of this admiration then lead to idolizing the popular person and can end up in a form of worship. This is misplacing physical strength and popularity for good character. Sometimes persons with issues of low self-esteem or low self-worth desire to be around the popular person without fully understanding that it's the character that matters and not the popularity. Unfortunately, our culture enables immoral behavior of the popular person to the detriment of society. In the dating scene, many teenage girls become victims of emotional, physical, and psychological abuse because they misunderstand the difference between a boy's popularity and his character. This is a very significant problem in high school and especially college campuses. Date rape, abusive male-female relationships on college campuses are symptoms of this misjudgment of character. It is clear that we must teach these principles of character to help the development and maturity of our young people. Popularity is never an indication of good character. Item number 7, family background. Your family background is never a measure of your character. Some may disagree with my assessment because they may identify families that produce many members of outstanding character. The reality is that it's the values and principles about life that is taught in that family which result in the type of character that is exhibited. You don't just have an upstanding character because you were born in a good family. Character must be developed. Item number 8, political and power connections. It should be straightforward that power and political connections do not determine character. We understand why we may respect people in power, but it must not develop to the extent that we assume they must be of good character to attain their position. There is a difference between respecting the office of, say, the mayor or the CEO of a corporation, even when they have a sleazy character. All people, regardless of their title, power, or political positions and connections, must be held to the same standard of character, decency, and decorum. You don't get a pass because of your position. So far, I tried to identify possible errors and assumptions people make about what determines a good character. So what are the things that determine a good character? Let's talk about what is character. The first thing I want to emphasize is that your character determines your values, your principles, and ethics. Let me repeat that. Your character determines your values, your principles, and your ethics. This is a critical factor to character development. For example, if you are always late for work, you are saying loudly that you don't value your job. If you did value it, you would not continue to make excuses for being late. You would change your habit. Character establishes who you are on the inside. It defines who you are when no one's looking. Now, teaching about character is teaching about principles. Now, look at this principle. Character is the constant of your life. It should be the same in the boardroom, in the courtroom, or the dining room. Character is the same when you are in a crowd or alone, at work, in church, or at home. I like the way Dr. Miles Monroe alluded to numbers. He said, numbers are called characters for a specific reason. They never change. Now think about that. 5 is always 5. 21 is always 21. And 225 never changes. Your character should be the same whether you are by yourself at midnight or at a cocktail party with the mayor of your city. You should not see two different people operating as you, which changes depending on your environment or your situation. This is a problem with many of us. We sometimes tend to try to impress others by not being ourselves. We should not be one person when we're with our friends and a different person at home. Your family and your children will eventually lose respect for you when they find out the truth. Did you ever hear people use this term, church face? It means that you have a church personality that only shows up at church. You say all the right church cliches. When someone asks, how are you? Your quick answer is, blessed and highly favored. You know all the right phrases and say all the right things. But at home, you're a beast in a cage. And when someone upsets you, your language is not becoming of a Christian. That is operating like two persons, and we don't know who the real person is. A person of good character is the same regardless of the environment they're in. There is no pretense. Like numbers, you should be the same. That's what character is all about. You are transparent. Two more principles are these. Character is a commitment to a set of principles, values, and ethical standards without compromise. Note that character is tested and become evident in the fire of temptations, tests, and trials. Character requires commitment without compromise of principles. This is one of the reasons why it is difficult to be a politician in today's society. I'm reminded of several pastors who got elected to the U.S. Congress. Many of them became disillusioned because of the compromising ethical standards they found in Congress. How does this principle apply to you and I? We must be willing to stick to good principles in the face of criticism, in the face of insults, in the face of opposition. Like a good marriage, commitment is vital. So, do you give up your principles to be liked? Are you a people pleaser? You cannot develop a good character by always trying to please people. Stick to good principles and people will respect your fortitude and your stand. I also stated that character becomes evident in the fire of temptation, tests, and trials. What do I mean? Life is always full of temptations, of tests, and trials. It is a part of the requirement for personal growth. It is not that if a trial will come, it's when the trial comes, will you stand firm or will you compromise? So character requires commitment and not compromise of principles. I have a few more principles I want to share with you. So please stand by and we will be right back after this break. Welcome back. Here is another principle that I think will be very useful for us. A good character means that your words and your actions are the same. What you say and what you do are one every time. If they are different, then you and I are a fake or a hypocrite. Let me repeat that. A good character means that your words and your actions are the same. What you say and what you do are one every time. How do you and I measure up to this principle? Are you teaching this principle to those persons you are responsible for? To those persons you influence, like your children, your students, or your employees? Can your children say that your words and your actions are consistently the same? If your words and actions do not line up, then we qualify as a fake or a hypocrite. These are strong words, but I want to remind us of how important it is that your words match your actions. The word hypocrite comes from the Greek word hypokrites, which means an actor, a stage player, or a pretender. As you know, actors play a role which are not their real personality. If we can't trust that what you mean is what you say, then you are a pretender. You have more than one personality and we do not know who the real person is. A test of character is that your words and your actions are always in agreement. So far, I've identified personality traits which do not determine your character. I also identified some basic principles of good character. The question is, what guidelines or rules can you use to help you identify and follow a good character? We need something practical that we can apply to our lives. There are many books and videos out there that business and people use that teach about character development. Personally, I take my guidelines from the scripture in Philippians 4 and 8. This scripture says, "Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and anything praiseworthy, meditate or think on these things." To me, this scripture is an excellent guide for a good character indicator. The key guiding principles are these: truth, honesty, just, purity, good report, virtue, praiseworthiness. I believe that when you apply and master this list, then your character should be such that you don't have to speak. Why? Because your lifestyle will speak for you. These principles are central to developing a reliable character, consistent, moral, that anyone can trust. You should always tell the truth. Nothing strengthens and confirms character like the truth. Honesty means being honorable, dignified, and being worthy of respect. Now, honesty should not be your best policy. Honesty should be your only policy. Now, being just means that we are to think and act in agreement with high standards of justice and righteousness. And because of them, you would hate racism, oppression, and discrimination. Purity is a guideline for good morals, and you cannot follow or accept popular morality of society. Being lovely and of good report means to be kind, gracious, and cordial, and commendable, with a good reputation, because it takes strength of character to be kind. Virtuous refers to moral excellence and is like purity. Praiseworthy means that your speech and actions must generate encouragement, compassion, and comfort. But you know, the bottom line about character is that your values, your principles, and ethics determine the foundation of your character. It's all up to you. In closing, I want to thank all of you for watching. Please share this information with others, your family and your friends. You can reach us with your comments, your ideas, and your suggestions by sending an email to hadtrt@gmail.com or bvctv3@gmail.com. We would like to hear from you. And remember that you always need to hear and do the right thing. Knowledge is powerful, but the wisdom of God is a principal thing. So, surround yourself with a few good people. Share love, knowledge, and respect for each other. It will make a big difference.